call. I have 2:01 on my computer, so I'm greeting you all from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm usually in Boston, but this is Alice Bonner, and I'm here for the HaltMed conference the next couple of days. So I may run into some of you. You're also here for that. But if you hear background noise from me, that's why. This is a very, very exciting group of people that have joined today to hear about the topic of QAPI. I know some people say QAPI. We used to get fined money at CMS if we didn't say QAPI, but it's all good. And quality assurance performance improvement is the topic. Just looking at all the different people who have joined the call today, it is an amazing group. We had 240 people sign up for this call, so it's top of mind for a lot of you. And in addition to the speakers and the folks that you're going to hear from today, there are a lot of QAPI experts in this audience. And so we're going to encourage you when the time comes to introduce yourself and speak up and say who you are and what you do with QAPI, either in your nursing home or in your research or as an advocate or as a nursing home resident. We have some people from survey agencies on this call. We have people who do work with legislators and others. So it's a really august group. We are going to start in a moment, but I think first what I'll do is introduce our speakers very briefly, and then we're going to do a quick poll to find out about all of you. So in terms of speakers, today you're going to hear from Anna Fisher, who is a nurse and a researcher, and Dr. Fisher works out in Omaha, where she's from, on a lot of QAPI and other initiatives that she's going to tell us about. We're also joined by Tina Sandri, who is a quality expert and CEO of Forest Hills of DC, which is a senior living community that I've had the privilege of visiting. And she does a lot of work with QAPI in nursing homes. And finally, Lori Hinkson, who's an RN and is passionate about long-term care and providing long-term care, which she does, and is working with us very closely on our project in Connecticut. So you're going to hear from her as well. So with that, Isaac, if we're ready, if you're able to, I know you're still admitting people to the call, but are we able to do the poll and find out a little bit more? Oh, we are. Excellent. So this is our QAPI 101 introduction. There should be a poll on your screen or your phone, and you should be able to answer. So which best describes you? You can say if you're a nursing home resident, family member or care partner, clinical team member, etc., policymaker, regulator, consultant, etc. So please respond to the poll if you can, and then Isaac will share the results with all of us.
Okay, I have 10 of 82 people who have participated. So let's get a few more. Poll went down, someone said. Go down. No one can see it anymore?
It's still on my screen. It's still on my screen, but I don't know. Well, we could also say, I usually, it says poll is gone. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
We could ask people to just chat in, because I usually do that at the beginning, and I did not. So if you could chat in just your name and your role in the organization that you work with, that would be great. Technology is not our friend today, but so sorry about that. But okay. So thank you for chatting in who you are, and everybody can see the chat, so that'll be great. We are going to talk today. Again, we've got some fabulous presenters who I just introduced, and they may want to say a little bit more about themselves when they begin to speak. But the first person who's going to get us started here today, at I know what sounds like a very basic level, but it's super important, is Lori Hinkson's going to talk to us about what is QAPI? How do we define it or describe it to get us started with the conversation? So Lori, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, everybody, welcome. We're very passionate about QAPI, and so we want to make sure that everybody understands what it is. It's really a very big topic, I think, during surveys and during when we're talking about quality of life. So basically, what is QAPI? And I think the easiest way to explain it is it's usually a written plan to guide your efforts, right? To ensure or assure that care and services are being maintained at acceptable levels of performance and that we're continually trying to improve or respond to areas that we think are not quite where we want to be. And we get this information through a wide range of sources, right? We get them through uh, survey tools. We get them through resident council meetings. We get them through questionnaires that we send out through families, through our own quality indicators. So it's taking all that information and I think sometimes where maybe the confusion I want to say is that, or maybe the emphasis is more on improving or addressing areas that we are found to see a problem with, but it's also partly our responsibility to make sure that we're maintaining areas as well as improving. Because you want to get to the problem really before you know it's a problem, right? So it's spot checking those things too and focusing on, you know, areas of care, quality of life. And quality of life, I think sometimes we quickly look at what the areas are in a quick down and dirty, oh, this came up as a problem, that came up as a problem. But we don't look at quality and certainly sometimes satisfaction. And satisfaction is right and encompasses a lot of individuals in a nursing facility or any type of community. It is family members, loved ones, responsible parties. It is resident council, and those that go to resident council and those who speak for the resident council at those meetings and on behalf of those who can't speak for themselves. So I think that while we're looking at QAPI, we should be looking at putting a written plan together on how we're going to make the best outcome for quality of care, quality of life, and satisfaction. That's really what QAPI is.
Well, I think that's great. And I also heard you talk about um, two very important and different aspects, but they really come together through QAPI, which is you talked about individuals, you talked about residents, people who live in nursing homes, you talk about people who visit nursing homes, you talked a little bit about the staff who work in nursing homes, and what about their quality of life, and what about, you know, their workflows, and, you know, do they have a lot of joy in their work, or are there things we could do and look at through those performance improvement projects that would make a difference there as well. So I think you did a really nice job laying all of that out for us, Lori. And I think that's a really nice lead into Anna Fisher, who's going to talk a little bit more about, again, sort of the background and the framework in terms of some of the regulations and really the history of QAPI. So Anna, while you start talking, I'm going to pull up your slides to share with the group.
Thank you, Alice and Lori. Great overview here. I'm going to start out with just a historical perspective of QAPI. It was implemented, or I should say launched, in 3 phases. The earliest one, phase 1, was back in 2016. Phase 2 implemented in 2017, and then phase 3 was 2019. There's 3 main F tags. F tags, if you're not familiar with the F, it's federal tags. And F865, F867, and F868. And for those of you on this Zoom, I took it a step further. In the newest QSO 25-14-NH memo, it starts on page, 728, if you want to delve into it a little bit more. But what I wanted to do was take a moment to talk about the building blocks to effective QAPI. Everything you see here, I'm going to briefly touch upon those 5 building blocks, but this is also in a QAPI at a glance guide, and we will be sharing that after this Zoom call. But I must say that Dr. Alice Bonner was instrumental in writing this QAPI at a glance. So to start out with these building blocks for an effective QAPI program is that number 1 is your design and scope. Well, what does that really mean? It means that you want to have an ongoing comprehensive program. Lori mentioned some of the key areas: the quality of life, the clinical care, and resident choice. Also, in this design and scope, you want to make sure it reflects the complexities or any of the uniqueness of care that you provide. You tailor it to your community. That second one there, governance and leadership here, is making sure whoever your executive leadership team is, if it's a group, if it's an individual, that that person has really the overarching responsibility. But importantly, the governance and leadership is making sure that they're having enough staff time, the equipment needed, the technical training to make your QA program and plan successful. We're going to move on to feedback 3, and I really wanted to spend an additional minute on this because we get asked quite a few questions. What is this feedback, data systems, and monitoring? Well, if you're already a provider and in the community, you know you're already doing a lot of this. Lori mentioned a lot of that, the satisfaction surveys, the questionnaires. Take credit for what you're doing and how you solicit feedback. Resident council is a big one. How about care plan meetings, safety meetings? How many of us attend daily huddles? Your monthly in-service meetings? You know you're doing the work. Take credit for that by making sure you document what your meeting is, the results, and so on. Your data systems, that might include looking at your electronic health system. Are you looking at staffing data? Are you looking at incident reports, complaints, suggestions, and then the monitoring of it? The whole purpose of this is continuous ongoing improvement. What is your mode of monitoring? We're going to get to that in a little bit here. Then number 4, one of my favorites, performance improvement projects. This isn't replacing what you're currently doing. This is going to make good quality even better. It's going to further enhance what you're already doing. And so what is a performance improvement project? Some of you on the call may have heard, well, we're going to PIP it. Well, what does that mean? It means through your efforts, you've identified an area of opportunity, a high risk, problem prone area. And then whatever you do, you want to make sure that it is a SMART goal methodology. SMART meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. Make it manageable for you. I know many of us, we like to take on many performance improved projects at once, but you need to make it realistic for it to be successful. And then we go into number 5. I want to take a minute to explain this. Systematic analysis and systemic action. First of all, I'm going to define that for you. And by the way, this is in the QSO memo as well. Systematic is your step-by-step process. It's structured. Your whole goal of this is so it can be replicated. So, for example, you're using root cause analysis. You may be using a fishbone, the Plan, Do, Study, Act. That's your systematic, very methodical approach. Then your systemic action, that refers to what is embedded within that affects an entire system or process. So I'm going to give you an example. You may say falls. You've identified that as a problem-prone area. It's a high-risk area. So what is our systematic analysis? Well, we're going to do a root cause analysis that involves a PDSA. And Alice, if you could kindly go to the next slide. I'll explain that a little bit further. But your PDSA, and you see right here, the focus is you've identified, you've found your problem. You're going to organize your team, key players in it. You're going to clarify what is the knowledge that each person brings to, and then understand those root causes. And then you're going to select your process improvement. Herein then is your PDSA cycle. This is so important. This is the Plan, Do, Study, Act. It is a process improvement methodology. And what PDSA is, it's more suitable for the smaller changes. So maybe you want to take a look at call out response times, something that may be more smaller and manageable. I was asked a question recently, what's the difference between PDSA and PDCA? Many of you might have heard plan, do, check, act. Think of PDCA as it's again a process methodology, but it has larger changes in mind. So PDSA, and this is the one that CMS recommends in their language in the QSO memo. So this is going to tend to be more smaller in approach that can be worked through fairly quickly. And so this is really a high level overview of the regulatory component of it again, but I encourage each and every one of you to really look at the QSO memo that we'll be sharing at the end of the presentation for further information. Alice, back to you. I think you're on mute. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Alice. Performance improvement projects, everyone. I just wanted to expand on it. Not only is this best practice, but it's part of the regulation. We must identify a high risk problem prone area. And you can see I highlighted it in red. We must have at least one improvement project annually. And it's based on what you've identified through your systematic process. Again, I'm going to go back to you're identifying this area of opportunity through your data collection analysis, and you're already doing all this, everyone, right? Because you're having meetings, safety, care plan meetings, the resident council, you're soliciting feedback. And then I just want to close the loop, literally, by saying the whole continuous cycle is whatever you're finding as a result of your outcomes, please make sure you have a process to disseminate it, not only to your staff, your leadership, but importantly, your residents. This is their home, and we need to keep them informed of what goes on in their home. So thank you, Alice.
Fantastic.
Now back to you.
Great. Okay. So thank you very much. That was a great overview by Lori and Anna, giving us a framework. And now we're going to hear Tina talk a little bit more about how QAPI can actually be applied and implemented in a nursing home. So Tina, over to you.
Thank you. Let me just start with a preface. I'm having some tech difficulties, so if I go off camera, I'll just re-click back in. Pardon the technical difficulties. So how does all this look like when we translate the theory into the actual practice within a building? And I think the regulations require us to do QAPI at least quarterly. Some communities will do it monthly, and it all depends on how you want to take a bite of the elephant in terms of a team. And so one of the things that I do is talk to our team and say, hey, do we really like this cadence quarterly? Because sometimes people like to have a little bit of time for the plan, do, study, act cycle to happen and give themselves time to monitor, collect data, and get the feedback. Other teams don't want to have a long meeting once a quarter. They'd rather take it in smaller bites. So some of it is up to the leadership in the building to kind of figure out what is the cadence, what is the pace, what seems manageable in a SMART goal for a team to handle. So there's some flexibility there. We like to do it quarterly, and I do check in once a year and ask our team, is this still good for us? Do we want to change that? And they seem to like the quarterly cadence. It's a time for us to all sort of stop, drop, and pay a little attention to looking at what's ahead, what's on the road, looking behind us as well, and just be with each other in an academic sense to look at the great things. And I heard earlier the idea that we take credit for the good things that we do. And I think these are things that sometimes we forget to do within our practices as a team because we're so busy managing the day-to-day issues that we don't stop. And so I, as a leader, like to stop and go, hey, make sure you put that in your QAPI minutes. Get credit for the good things that you did. To some degree, I look at the QAPI minutes that come out of these great meetings as the medical record for the organization as a matter of practice. We have a medical record on our resident that talks about the complex comorbidities, the ways we are different perspectives in handling those challenges. We're doing the same thing within the QAPI meetings in that we are addressing the organizational needs as a complex very complex community with its own special needs. And so this is where it's really important that we document the good things that we're doing as well as the things that we want to be changing, just like we would do within a resident's medical record. Residents walking 50 extra feet this week than last week. We want to document that. So take the credit for the good as well as the bad. Don't think of QAPI as just a problem solving area. It's where we document in the community, and it's not regulatory based. We could be doing great things in our innovation area or our marketing areas, and we want to capture those things as well because they help boost our team performance. And when I say innovation, it doesn't always have to be technology. It could be a process change. Maybe we change how we're monitoring our falls and preventing our falls, and it was just had to do with how we open the eyes of some of our team members differently. So we want to capture those kinds of things. So just to build a little bit more on how do we actually figure out what's going to be within our QAPI studies, and some of it is looking at, as mentioned earlier, the surveys, the survey deficiency, satisfaction surveys. I want to also invite dissatisfaction surveys. So how do we know as organizations? I know Anna's also a quality award examiner, and one of the things that we're challenged to look at from a quality perspective is not just the good things, not the things that people are complaining about, but how do we know about the people who are unhappy, who are not complaining? And so those are all the ways we want to try to gather information between our resident councils, our families. I know there's an ombudsman on the call. So our employee base, we are also looking at industry benchmarks from Trend Tracker to CMS 5-star data, lots of different places. Your vendors will have information resources, and they're tracking information that you probably don't even know about. Visitors that come to the community are another way, your volunteer community. And so checking in with those different folks and asking for their feedback or asking what they are tracking and then getting tapped into that are ways that we can find ideas on what we want to improve. And then once we have that data, we're looking at ourselves as a community, we're looking at the region, we're looking at national data, and we're hoping to look at that data as it's trended over time, because we want to look at the big changes that are going on. And know that that kind of takes time in order to do that. And then looking at Anna's slide deck earlier about the 5 steps, I think a simple analogy might be to kind of look at when we talk about design, we're talking about within a team sport, or if you're a student, thinking about an analogy of what is the syllabus here? What is our purpose in being here? And that's how we design our QAPI program. Or, if you sign up for a class in college, what are you going to be doing for that semester? What are you going to do with your time? So that's the whole design aspect of QAPI that we do as a team. And then governance winds up being, your job as a parent is to make sure your kid gets to school on time with a lunch, sharpened pencils, ready to go. And so our boards, our governance structure, our ownership is responsible for approving budgetary resources so that we get what we need, the tools that we need to do our job and feel like we didn't have to, scrounge to go find those tools, that we are amply resourced, and that is an annual conversation that we have through the budgeting process with regards to governance to say that. And then we are also responsible as operators to turn around and not just share results out with our residents and with our team members and everybody that I just listed where we get those information resources. We're also responsible for making sure there's a connection to our governance from an operations perspective that connects the two, and so that our ownership and our leadership understand this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it at a high level. And so there's that ongoing connection. Then the data piece, in the real life, it's your report cards, right? It's the scoreboard at the end of the basketball game. It's all those things that you're collecting, those data points. It's comparing to, the track team down the street. And if you find that you don't like those data points, we develop a PIP, right? So, in school, it could be after school studies, it could be a study group, it could be, an extra team practice that's going to focus on, the 3-point pass that's important to us. And that's your PIP that you're involving different people in. And what is important that is different than traditional pre-QAPI process is that these PIPs are interdisciplinary. It is a team sport. It is not me just saying, I see there's a problem, I'm going to put this into practice and I'm going to solve the problem. I, meaning a department, oh, I have a nursing issue, so I'm just going to take care of this within my nursing team and we'll fix it. It's actually soliciting information and perspectives from other people. You know, there's a story of the seven blind men, and they're looking at an elephant in different perspectives, and everybody's a little bit right, a little bit wrong. And in the end, you put it all together and you got the better picture. That's what QAPI asks us to do, is get those different perspectives from an operational perspective. And then your systems analysis, that's your post-game review, right? That's your parent-teacher conference. That's all those kinds of things. So when you boil it down that way, it's pretty simple what we're doing. It's got a lot of fancy talk for our long-term care communities, but that's really what it is. And that's how we operate and implement that at the community level.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's a lot of really great information. And I'm going to go to the chat where someone put in a question that I think is relevant to what all of you guys have combined to talk about, which is Deb Paw wrote in that she finds a lot of the teams she works with overcomplicate QAPI and get stuck in analysis paralysis. We've all been part of that. And data reporting of many items that are more QA, but not getting into the PI part. So Tina, I know this is one of your favorite topics, and Anna and Lori too. What do you guys think about that? If you were in that nursing home, or if you were part of the team that Deb is on, and people weren't really getting through the PI portion of this, how would you work with the team to try to sort of move them in that direction? Go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say, you could actually pit this, because the whole QAPI is data driven. If you're in, I love that term. What is that? Analysis paralysis?
Analysis paralysis. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you'll find that many individuals, they're not adequately trained on even how to read, interpret data. Sure, we see it. We're great. We're just wonderful at collecting it. But what do we do with it? You may want to start out with a performance improvement project on understanding your data analysis methods, and then start out with the 5 whys. Do it simple. Why are we having issues with data? Why doesn't staff understand it? Why aren't we moving forward? Keep asking yourself, but see what happens then. In addition to the 5 whys, we want to do a spreadsheet, a Pareto analysis, a run chart. We want to add all these things to it, which makes it further complex. Start out by keeping with the basics. I would say start out with your SMART goal and start out simple, but you need to understand the root cause of why you're in analysis paralysis. Am I saying that right? Analysis paralysis? I'm going to have to adopt that. Yes.
And I think that's great. And I just want to point out that Frank Dornfest, who's one of our wonderful former nursing home residents and current current scholars of many things, and joined some of our calls. He put in, recruit a resident to work with us. So Frank, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and say anything more than that, but I think you're certainly one of the people who guides us all the time on the importance of the voice of residents and how we have to hear directly from residents. So very glad that you chimed in there. Tina or Lori, do you want to add anything to what Anna said?
Yeah, I would just throw in with regards to the comment that there's so much on QA and not enough on PI, is that, how we train our teams is really important. And, Maya Angelou says it's, not what you did, it's how you made me feel. And I think in the end, our work teams that are working on these, that's equally important, right? So you want to decrease falls, but you have to make sure that the team members feel involved and engaged and appreciated and supported along the way as part of that process, so that that change can be more permanent, right? And so what goes into the sausage is just as important as what the sausage is at the end of the exercise, right? So I think, and then the idea, the things that we've done to introduce this concept, particularly when you have new department heads that aren't familiar with the process and are coming in, it's important that they have a role model, right? It's like we talk about mentorship and everything else for everyone else. So not just throwing people directly out into that and then having to go find the data and then kind of getting stuck in it, but being able to handhold and say, I know Crystal's got our administrators on this call. And so we will tell people, if you have any questions, come to us and we will walk you through the first number of cycles to help you look at the data. And so that handholding is actually very important, I think, rather than letting people just run and go after having some training, and also being able to role model what a good study looks like in a department meeting, so that the new players can kind of watch and absorb that cultural process of what that data analysis looks like.
Right. That critical element of seeing other people doing it, right? It's not enough to be on Zoom calls all the time. Like, no, you have to be in a nursing home. You have to be working shoulder to shoulder with the team. And I think Anna and Tina both brought out in their conversation about the interprofessional team. And again, look at, go through and look at the participants on this call today. We have almost 100 people. And again, just a variety from very diverse backgrounds. We've got people who own and operate nursing homes. We've got direct care team members. We've got surveyors. We've got people from the QIO community. We've got people from APACN and ADANA, and people who really are professional associations looking at the integration of what they do with assessments into QAPI. So I think it's really, really important. The other thing is, I know Carrie Lelchal just chatted in. Carrie's a strong advocate and member of Moving Forward Coalition, that her son, who's a nursing home resident, is involved in the hiring process at the home where he lives. So I think that's another really key point. And Carrie, I don't know if you want to chime in and say anything else about that. She might not be able. Oh, there you go.
There we go. So in my son's home, they have 3 residents that work through the new hire orientation process. Going through with the new hires of, first of all, this is my home. So when you come into my room, understand this is my home. Explaining what it feels like when you walk in at 3 a.m. and you have your phone playing music in your back pocket, and you're now disturbing my roommate and myself. And what happens when you leave things in the hall? We have another resident that they use to teach transfers with. It's real important of training them. But the other thing that's done in our home is that we take care of our staff and we train them properly. Because if you don't take care of your staff, you're not taking care of your residents. And that's part of what is missing in all of these processes for people is it's the people. You have to take care of your people.
Right. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much. And, that moves us to the next question that we had all talked about discussing, and you've already started, which is, how else can we involve residents? How can we involve individuals who live in nursing homes? And as Anna always says so beautifully, this is their home. It's not supposed to feel like a hospital. It's not supposed to feel like an institution, but we know in subacute and post-acute, sometimes people are very sick. They're almost hospital level of acuity. And so we know that that's a challenge. But again, getting back to residents, I know we have Jeanette on the call. I saw Marguerite, I saw Cindy, as well as Frank. These are all people who are living in nursing homes right now. So if any of you guys want to unmute yourselves and talk a little bit at all about your involvement in QAPI or any of the related components you've heard about here today, please feel free to unmute yourself and contribute to our conversation.
If you would like to unmute, please virtual hand. Thank you.
Oh, raise your virtual hand and Isaac can unmute you.
Alice, can I make a quick comment while he's unmuting?
Please.
Yes, along with Tina's analogies here, this is their home. So put yourself in your own home. What if somebody just came into your home at 3 a.m. and wanted to get you up to take you to the restroom? What are you going to do? You're going to react to it. And then they're going to be,
you're good.
Exactly. This is their home and we need to respect that.
Right.
Yes, you go.
Jeanette and Liz, I think we see you. Would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I would like to comment on that. I for quite a few years was part of the orientation when they hired new people. We have new owners now, so that is something that I've been broaching them with again, to be part of that system in our home. The other thing with starting with the pilot program, with moving forward for our resident councils, I approached our administration with regards to attending the QAPI meetings. And she said she's trying to figure out how she can make that work, because a lot of things that are discussed at some of their QAPI meetings have to do with HIPAA and other residents. So I feel like I've got my foot in the door a little bit at the fact that she's looking into how I can participate as resident council president, and then bring that back. One of the things we just recently worked on in our home at resident council is we're getting the same complaints all the time, usually from the same people. I understand some of them have some cognitive issues as well. Concerned with regards to how to document that, because I do post the minutes, but also what we've encouraged them to just recently start doing was to start documenting. If you're having this issue, good or bad, experience with an aide during the day, or if it's a common problem, one of the things they say is they can never find anybody to complain to. So we've posted numbers in the rooms of the nurse manager. Every room has their number posted up, so they know who they can call, what extension. If they can't reach her, I've even encouraged them to come find me, and I will take them to whomever they need to speak to. So, I mean, it's something we're working on, but it's not something that in the past that we've even been able to access, is the QAPI meetings. It's always been so hush hush. So
Yeah.
this is encouraging for me.
Well, that's great. And I know Liz Stern is with you, and Liz has been on a lot of these calls, and you know, really as a care partner, as somebody who, you know, is involved with people who live in a nursing home, multiple people. Liz, anything that you want to share at all from your perspective? Like, how about outside people? I shouldn't say it that way, but people who are not themselves living in the nursing home, you know, getting involved in QAPI.
Well, you know, to me at this point, I think what we listened to this afternoon is very encouraging, but I'm asking you to help us with, what does tomorrow look like from a family member's perspective, from like Jeanette said, a resident council's perspective. How do we interface? You know, so we can put together like you know, log sheets, and but how do we actually get into the system, so to speak, so that there's an interface here, as opposed to just you know, an adjunct kind of position. So I'd like to know, what do I do? What do we do tomorrow? That would be my question.
What do we do tomorrow? You know, we love saying that. So I don't know if Anna and Lori, you want to offer some formal comments listening to this great discussion. We kind of skipped discussion. Now we're going back. But what else would you guys say about community members and residents that we haven't heard yet from the folks who've been speaking?
You want to go, Anna?
Lori, I'll go right after you.
Okay. You know, the only thing that I can think of that in the past I've done, and certainly in many different roles, whether it's a consultant or whether it's a director of nurses, is we're at a fabulous point in the season. And I used to like to do open houses for families and residents in the spring and the fall. It's a good time to do it, right? It's you know, it can be themed out, a garden theme or something, where you're inviting people from the community to come in, and it's a good time to pass around that questionnaire that maybe didn't get out. Hey, listen, this is what we're talking about. And does anybody have any suggestions? Or here's a suggestion box of, you know, what things you feel need to be addressed. I think that's a good way to start than as opposed to having a big formal meeting that is set up with maybe a little bit of reservation, because I think sometimes we want to hear, but we don't want to hear. And it's so important that we do hear what the thoughts and what the opinions are of the residents, the resident council, their family members, and certainly anybody who's associated. And I think both, you know, Tina and Anna spoke to the point of, we don't really utilize all the people in our community of caregivers, our consultants, our people that walk in, our community programs that are going on all around us in the town or city that you're in. So I like a twice a year open house. I think it brings people together in a non-confrontational way. It's nobody complaining, but it's, hey, come see us, join us. You know, it's spring. Let's have a little bit of a spring fling, and
Mhm.
or it's fall. And so I've always found those to work well.
So I love spring
Uh,
fling, for sure. Yep, I
I was
love
just
that.
gonna,
But
that's great, Lori. I was just gonna make a quick comment on how to start to operationalize it. Liz and Jeanette, good to see you. And maybe you suggest to the team that you would like to participate because they may not know what you're wanting. And a way to capture that is add, if they can add resident counsel to their QAPI metrics. So for example, I'm a nurse. We are already tracking clinical indicators, quality of life, and so on. There should be one for resident counsel. Why? This is your home. This is your home. So it's integrating that, and then to avoid any type of HIPAA or compliance confidentiality, we will have you start out first. And then when you're done in the QAPI meeting, then the rest follows. But what we're coming up with here is a process on how to operationalize it. Just a
right,
little
and
tidbit.
yeah, I love all these suggestions that you guys are making, because they're very specific. They're very tactical. Frank just chatted in again. Pull everyone into it. They had their mail carrier come in and deliver personally and give her impressions. And what a great thing is, you know, each one of us, each person on this call, you all bring something from your personal lives into this work, and that's what makes it special. That's what makes it matter, that you're there. You know, whatever it is your role is, that you are part of this. So it isn't just about the training you might have received as a nurse, as a social worker, as a physician, or an advocate. Yes, of course, all that's important, but it's also the other things in your life. And people can feel free to chat in things that maybe they bring to their work. You know, maybe you're a musician, maybe you're a dancer, maybe you're a poet, an artist, you know, all different kinds of things. But I think we've gotten a really good idea from some of the folks on the phone about bringing community members in, bringing care partners in, really listening to residents, and not just, that's not a check the box thing, right? That is the culture in the nursing home. The leadership and the culture has to be to prioritize hearing and acting on the voice of residents, acting on it. So I'm so glad we have some residents here. I don't know if Michelle Mosia, who's with us from the Michigan state team, the Michigan Moving Forward state team. Michelle, you chatted in about disrupting the status quo. Do you want to say anything more about that book or anything else? You have to raise your hand and Isaac can unmute you. Isaac, are you able to unmute Michelle?
You should have an indicator on your screen now, Michelle, asking you to unmute.
I do. Hi, everybody.
Oh, there you go.
I do. I was so excited when you mentioned about having the residents be part of new orientation, and that made me think. And you saw me put in the chat this great book, and it has AARP on it too, Disrupting the Status Quo of Senior Living. It's actually a mind shift. And throughout this whole book, Jill Vitale Awesome, and I might be saying her name incorrectly, she just gives a lot of pearls that she has met with other people that have run nursing homes, about some different things that you can do to improve the nursing home life. Just like everybody is saying, this is their home, how to engage the staff, etc. But it's just filled with a lot of great pearls. And I saw somebody mention it and they said, I love that book. And then I'm part of the Moving Forward National Coalition on the Michigan State team. So I'm a coach in nursing homes. And to improve leadership skills, we're working on QAPI. And I have to tell you, I'm so happy I attended this. I learned so much right at the beginning, how we can introduce QAPI to the team. And also, I'm giving them all these little pearls too that I've read in this book. So thank you, Alice, for unmuting me.
Of course. And the Michigan State team is doing great work. Also, we have some colleagues maybe from Pennsylvania. There's a lot of work in Pennsylvania also, the teaching nursing home program and others. I know Carrie Lelchdahl wanted people to know that Barry Barkin teaches work about having community and meetings where everyone has a chance to speak. And again, I think that tracks back potentially to the interprofessional team, right? That if you really have a non-hierarchical interprofessional team, that means everybody's valued. It means you all know each other's names. Maybe you call each other by first names and you don't use titles or degrees. I don't know, but these are all options for you to think about and can be really valuable. So thanks for mentioning about Barry. He's been a member of the Moving Forward Coalition too, and he's a great leader for us always. I wanted to circle back to one more topic, and then we're going to use the rest of the time for Q&A. But even though we've talked about some of this already, I'm wondering if Lori, Anna, and Tina, if each of you could just give one example of a challenge or maybe an opportunity you took advantage of in putting a QAPI team and program together. Because let's go now to the programming and how do you do that at the nursing home level? Anna, I don't know if maybe you want to start, and then Lori, and then Tina.
Yes, I think you first have to know the residents in your community. You involve the key stakeholders from there with the residents' input to build the program on that. And a big part of it, and I said this in the very beginning, QAPI is very data-driven. So include everyone from the onset of the developing a program. That way you're avoiding any mishaps, misoccurrences along the way. But the thing I really want to talk, Alice, my popcorn story, if you will, is how to use that data to gain insight and action. I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face. We have so much of it. How do we do it? How do we harness it? How do we analyze it and turn it into action? That's what you have your QAPI team for. The different key stakeholders that Lori, you, and Tina have said throughout the presentation here. Let them help you take that and turn it into action. But again, I'm going to close back. It's important to understand that even the failures, it's okay. It's what helps us propel us to the next level. And I'll end on this. Whatever your efforts are, please share them with everyone. Not only just what the good ones are, but share everything throughout the whole process. Transparency is key to operationalizing an effective QAPI program.
Fantastic. Lori, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges I see is making sure the right people are in the room. And I think we've all touched base on that, it's not just the director of nurses and the department heads. It is people inside the building, outside the building, who's really there to make sure that the quality of life is enriched and at a level where we all want to see it. We forget that the little housekeeper that comes in 3 to 11 sees and hears more than most other people in the building and knows more about what's going on, and usually has a reasonably good opinion of how to fix it. And 9 out of 10 times they're right. So I think making sure that who's at that meeting, that we can have all the data in front of us, but it's that unseen data that if we don't ask, we don't know. And if the right people aren't there, they don't have that opportunity and they feel like they're not important to bring that information. And so, I always say after a survey, people say, oh, well, my department did really good, or my department had no problems. We either all succeed or we all fail. And that means for the residents, right? And for their family members. So, you know, it's kind of taking down those barriers and those walls we put up and saying, this really is a team sport. And we all have to be on the same page, and we all have to know that it's the smallest person that probably brings the most to the table about what we have to address and what is or potentially could be a concern and what's working. So
Great.
that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And Tina, we'll give you 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we're going to turn it over for questions. So go
Very
for
good. Very good. I feel like we're making a 3-layer bean dip between Anna and Lori's feedback here. So here's my layer, and I'm going to build on what Lori was talking about from a slightly different perspective, but very much the same thing. Not only just who's in the room, but is the right person, the right mentality in the room. So for me, some of the biggest challenge is every time I go to an organization and try to bring this in is getting the culture change mentality. And that is, for me, it's all departments. But then initially when I started this project years ago, people go like, well, marketing's not required by regs. We don't have to do that. Why should I do that? Why should that customer experience at the onboarding, going from transfer from hospital to here, matter from a regulatory QAPI aspect? Or nursing feeling like, well, is this nursing just, doing the checkbox for all departments now rather than just nursing? And just getting the community to understand, like the maintenance director to understand, this actually is your thing to do, right? So all departments having that mentality is important. I find that it takes time. I can't go in as a leader, as passionate as I am, and just make it happen. It takes a series of meetings over a period of time for that culture to change from a finger pointing, regulatory, you're wrong kind of mentality. We'll fix 100%, to adjust culture where we're looking for root causes. We're not looking to blame people by name. We're looking to find the system problem and then kind of fix that. And then getting the team to feel a responsibility collectively for a growth mindset to know better, do better. To me, that's the biggest challenge. It's also the biggest joy, and helping them to pull those strings along the way, meeting to meeting, to follow up.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, all of you, all of our wonderful speakers. And we have 7 minutes left for questions, and there's been fantastic chat today, as usual. So please put your hand up, your virtual hand up, and Isaac can enable you to unmute yourself. And you can either make a comment or ask a question. In particular, we'd love to hear anything about implementation that anybody on the call has done. I know we've got somebody from CMS Regional Office on the phone as well. We've got some students on the call. Just a real wonderful combination. We have Nancy Swires also from the Michigan team, and others. So what else would you say about implementing QAPI in your nursing home? I know we covered a lot of ground already today, but we have a lot of people who are doing this every day. And again, feel free to talk about something that has worked, something that is not. Okay, Liz and Jeanette, you've got your hand up again. So you should be able to unmute you.
And
Or you should be
Candy
able
as
to
well,
there you go. Okay.
The comment I made to Liz when you were talking towards the end was that it's really about changing the culture. One of the things that I run into almost on a daily basis is the comment, well, this is how we do it. And just because this is how we do it doesn't mean it's how it needs to still continue to be done. And it's just the mindset change of adjusting not only just to the times, but to the people that live in the community. We had so much more cognitive people, and now we've had more people with dementia or mental illness. And you've got to kind of change your mindset on how you address them, how you deal with them, how you interact with them. And so that's the challenge that I struggle with. So I think it's just addressing some of that cultural change and the view of just because we did it this way is how it should be done, doesn't mean it has to stay that way.
Right. That's such a good point, Jeanette. I mean, I bet every single person on this call has heard people say that. And it's, how can we get beyond that? And you gave some great examples of that. It's just when people come in with a fresh set of eyes and they are brand new to the nursing home or, wherever they work, for them to come in saying, why do we do it that way, and ask those questions. So valuable. I think Candy Worcester was also had a point to make. So Candy, I think, Isaac, can we unmute Candy, or can she unmute herself now?
Having residents feel empowered. They don't feel empowered. They are so.
Oh, there you go.
I missed the part on how do we get around the HIPAA when involving the residents and people from outside the nursing home. How do we get past that?
So Anna or Lori can probably, or Tina, and if you guys can respond. In a nursing home, if there are individual cases being discussed at all, I don't think other residents could be there, because that's protected information, and so the only people who should be in the room would be people who are relevant to that individual's case and have something that they need to contribute to the care.
But we can do it with resident counsel because they're bringing it up, correct? We can do whatever they suggest. We can add them and have them in on it.
They're all, Anna can talk more about it. She's one of our co-chairs from resident council from the last 3 years. So Anna, that question has come up before. What would you say? How do we advise about that?
And appreciate you bringing that up, because you would want to, first of all, it's derived from your resident council, correct? You're saying they want to be able to participate in QAPI.
Yes.
That's when you would take it to whoever, that's your leadership and governance, who runs or has the overarching accountability for that QAPI program. And this is your home. You let them know that you want to be an active participant. How do we work together to make that happen?
That'd be great. Okay.
And I'm just responding, and others can too. Sebi Badazzo wrote in, as a quality monitor, whom do I hold accountable for the QAPI team member when I visit the nursing home? That's a great question.
Yeah.
And again, Anna, I think this may have come up in yours, or Tina, in your buildings, but I mean, I would have said the person the nursing home has identified as the lead, the quality officer, or the lead for the QAPI team. But is that, you're nodding, both Lori and Anna, is that about what you would say, or something else? Under their QAPI plan, they would have designated that person who's the lead. I think that's really an important question, because it's not always like the medical director, the director of nurses, the administrator, like it might be, but it could be a staff nurse, could be a social worker, it could be anybody who's in the role and has had the required training and really knows the regs and those kinds of things. But Tina, do you have thoughts on that too?
I have a couple of thoughts with regards to the HIPAA conversation. One of the things we try to do in our QAPI meetings is to take the HIPAA out of the meetings, meaning that because it is such a data-driven process, let's talk about 3 residents that are experiencing XYZ as opposed to the people's names or their particular identifiers. So if your QAPI process is able to take it to a higher level, that's a way to kind of cleanse it so that you can bring other people in occasionally to kind of hear about the process. So we might have visitors in our QAPI meetings that could be a CNA, could be a board member, could be a new department head, could be a middle management person, and they're able to be in those meetings without the HIPAA data being an issue, number one. With regards to who is in charge of the QAPI process, I think if you're going in, it never hurts to start with asking the administrator who's the person. If is that your job to get, I want to see the QAPI plan and I want to know who's in charge of it. It's kind of a hard thing to ask when you get to the front desk, right? So maybe starting with the administrator and saying, hey, I'm here to take a look at quality assurance, and can you help me with your QAPI plan and understand who I might be talking to about that process?
Yeah,
and
that's great.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, boy, that hour flew by, I gotta say, as it always does. But I really want to thank Lori, Anna, and Tina, and especially thank Isaac for running tech, as he always does. Isaac, do you have any closing thoughts as we bring this meeting to a close? Do you want to talk about the next upcoming coalition conversation that's in the works?
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Anna, Tina, and Lori. We will be posting our next coalition conversation, which will be in early April. Hopefully in a week. It'll be continuing this topic actually on different strategies and approaches to engaging family members and care partners. So if that's of interest, please come back. That will get sent out in our newsletter, which you should all be registered for in the next week or so. So thank you so much. Thank you, Alice. Thanks all. And we'll see you in the next coalition conversation.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
All
Thank you,
right, take
everyone.
care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.